billionaire returns home to find his father on the floor barking like a dog, and the maid holding the chain tied to his neck. The mansion was silent when the billionaire walked in that evening, too silent. He had been gone for 3 years, running his empire abroad, and tonight, he returned unannounced. But nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to see. As he stepped into the grand living room, the faint sound of barking echoed through the hall. At first, he froze, thinking it was the family dog. But the barking didn't sound right, it was deeper, more human. He moved closer, his expensive shoes tapping on the marble floor. The barking grew louder. Then, suddenly, he stopped, his heart skipped. There, in the middle of the room, was his father, crawling on all fours. His fine white shirt was ripped, his knees bruised, and around his neck hung a metal chain. At the other end of that chain stood the maid, gripping it tightly, her eyes wide, her face cold and unreadable. The billionaire couldn't speak. He felt his chest tighten as his brain tried to make sense of what he was seeing. His father, once a man of power and pride, was now on the floor, barking like a dog, while the maid whispered commands under her breath. The smell of fear filled the air. The father's hands trembled as he tried to obey, whimpering like a trained pet. The billionaire's jaw clenched. Every muscle in his body screamed for answers. "What is going on here?" he shouted. His voice cracked through the silence. The maid slowly turned her head toward him, her expression calm, too calm. With a chilling smile, she said, "You finally came home, just in time to see what your father truly is." The billionaire's eyes widened. He took a step forward, but the maid yanked the chain, and his father let out a desperate bark that made his blood run cold. And then, the lights suddenly went out. Darkness swallowed the room. All he could hear was the sound of heavy breathing, and one last bark. The billionaire froze, his hand searching the wall for the light switch. But before he could find it, a whisper echoed through the room. "Don't move." It was the maid's voice, low and sharp. Then came the clinking of the metal chain, dragging slowly across the marble floor. The barking had stopped, replaced by soft sobs that sounded too human to ignore. He finally found the switch and slammed it up. The lights flickered back on, but the maid and his father were gone. Only the broken chain remained, coiled like a snake in the middle of the floor. The billionaire's chest tightened. He rushed down the hallway, calling for his father. His voice echoed through the mansion, bouncing off the walls like a cry in an empty cave. Nothing. Silence. Then, a sound. A faint metallic clank, coming from the basement door. He hadn't been down there in years. His father always told him never to go near that place. "It's where the past sleeps," he used to say. But tonight, curiosity was stronger than fear. He pushed the door open. The hinges screamed as dust fell from the frame. A cold wind brushed against his face as he took the first step down. The smell of damp concrete and old secrets filled his nose. At the bottom, a faint light glowed behind a metal door, the one his father had always kept locked. But now, it was open. He approached slowly, every step heavier than the last. When he reached the door, he peeked through the crack, and froze. His father was there, kneeling on the floor again. But this time, he wasn't barking. He was whispering something over and over, tears running down his face. The maid stood behind him, holding a small box covered in dust. She opened it, and inside was a photograph. The billionaire pushed the door wider, and the floor creaked. The maid's head snapped toward him. "Stop right there," she said coldly. "You don't know what this is about." He glared at her. "Then tell me. Why are you doing this to my father?" She looked down at the photograph, then back at him. "Because," she whispered, "he did it to me first." The billionaire blinked, confusion flooding his mind. "What do you mean?" But before she could answer, the lights flickered again. And from behind the maid, a third shadow moved. Someone else was in the room. The billionaire's heartbeat thundered in his chest. The maid stood frozen, her hand clutching the box tightly. Behind her, that third shadow moved again, slow, heavy, deliberate. He took a cautious step forward, his voice low but firm. "Who's there?" The maid didn't answer. Instead, she slowly turned her head toward the dark corner of the basement. Out of the shadows stepped an old man, his clothes torn and his face pale. For a moment, the billionaire thought his eyes were deceiving him. The man looked exactly like his father. Two identical faces, one kneeling, trembling on the floor, and one standing in the dark, breathing heavily. The billionaire's voice broke. What is this?" The maid's eyes filled with tears. "You were never supposed to see this," she whispered. "Not yet." The man in the shadows spoke, his voice cracked and weak. "She kept me here for years, said it was for justice." The billionaire looked from one man to the other, trying to understand. "Which one of you is my real father?" No one answered. The maid's lips trembled. She held out the dusty photograph, and handed it to the billionaire. He looked down. The picture showed a young woman, the same maid, years younger, standing beside a man who looked like his father, only younger. The woman in the picture was smiling, but her eyes told another story, fear. "That's me," she said softly. "And that's him." She pointed at the man kneeling with the chain still around his neck. The billionaire's stomach turned. "You mean, my father hurt you?" She nodded slowly. "He destroyed my family. Took everything from me. I swore I'd make him feel what helplessness truly is." The billionaire stared at the ground, torn between anger and pity. "But who's the man behind you?" The maid's voice trembled. "That is his twin brother. The one he framed for everything." The air grew colder. The two old men stared at each other, one shaking with guilt, the other burning with rage. The billionaire's head spun. His world, his entire childhood, was now a lie. Then, before anyone could speak again, the twin lunged at the maid, knocking the box from her hand. It flew across the room and hit the wall, breaking open. A small flash drive fell out and slid to the billionaire's feet. He picked it up slowly, his hands shaking. On it, written in faded ink, were the words. "The truth about everything." He looked up, and the maid was gone. The chain lay empty on the floor. Both men were breathing hard, staring at him as if waiting for his next move. And then, a faint whisper echoed from the stairway, the maid's voice again. "Don't trust either of them." The billionaire stood frozen, gripping the tiny flash drive as if it held the weight of the world. The basement was silent except for the shallow breathing of the two men, the supposed twins, both staring at him with wild, desperate eyes. The maid's voice still echoed in his head. "Don't trust either of them." He swallowed hard and took a step back, scanning both faces. They looked so alike it was impossible to tell which one was telling the truth. "Someone explain now," he said sharply. "Or I swear I'll call the police." The man still wearing the chain trembled. "Son, please, it's me. Your father. She's lying. She's been manipulating everyone since the day I fired her." The other man, the one who had appeared from the shadows, smirked bitterly. "Fired me? You mean framed me? You took my name, my life, and left me to rot while you built your empire." The billionaire's hands shook. His voice rose. "You both sound insane. I just want the truth." The chained man looked at the flash drive and said weakly, "That thing will twist your mind. Destroy it before it destroys you." But the other twin whispered, "No. Watch it. Then you'll know what kind of man he really is." The billionaire stared at the small drive in his palm, his only chance to know the truth. He slowly slipped it into his pocket and stepped toward the stairs. "I'll see what's inside." Alone. The chained man began to panic. "Don't go. She'll make you see lies. But before he could finish, the lights exploded with a loud pop. Sparks flew from the ceiling. The room plunged into darkness again. A scream echoed, not a bark this time, but a scream of real pain. The billionaire stumbled, reaching for the wall. "Who's there?" A crash followed. Then silence. He grabbed his phone and switched on the flashlight. The beam cut through the dust, revealing the chained man lying motionless on the floor. The chain had tightened around his neck. The other man was gone. The billionaire dropped to his knees, shaking his father's shoulders, or at least, who he thought was his father. "Dad! Wake up! Don't do this!" No response. He backed away, chest pounding, mind spinning. Only the faint gleam of the flash drive reminded him of what he had to do next. He ran upstairs, into his late father's study, and shut the door behind him. He plugged the flash drive into the old computer that still sat on the desk. The screen blinked. A folder appeared. It was titled, "The Dog Project." He clicked it open, and a video started to play. The first image made his blood run cold. It was a hidden camera recording, showing the maid, years younger, chained to the floor, barking like a dog, while two men in suits laughed. One of those men was his father. The billionaire's breath caught in his throat. No, this can't be real. Then, from behind him, the sound of the basement door creaking open again. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Coming closer. He turned around, and saw the shadow of the missing twin standing in the doorway. "Now," the man said quietly, "you understand everything." The billionaire's whole body froze. The shadow in the doorway stepped forward, the man who looked exactly like his father, only colder, harder, broken by years of hate. The flickering light from the computer screen glowed on his face. "Now you see," the man said softly. "Now you understand what he did to me, to her." The billionaire's mouth went dry. He looked at the video still playing, the younger maid crying, barking helplessly as the two men laughed. One of them, his real father, clapped his hands like it was a game. The other man in the video stood in the corner, refusing to join in. That man was the twin standing before him now. The billionaire's head spun. His voice trembled. You were there." The twin nodded. "I tried to stop him, but he told the world it was me who hurt her. He made me look like a monster so his reputation would stay clean. And when she returned, she couldn't tell us apart." He stepped closer. "She took revenge on the wrong man." The billionaire's eyes widened. "You mean, she chained the innocent one?" The twin looked away. "She didn't know. Neither did you. None of you did." Silence filled the room. Only the sound of the video, a faint whimper from the maid years ago, echoed like a ghost from the past. Then, footsteps echoed in the hallway again. The maid appeared in the doorway, her face pale and wet with tears. Her voice cracked. "It can't be. You were the kind one. You tried to help me that night." The twin nodded sadly. "But it's too late now." The maid collapsed to her knees, crying uncontrollably. The billionaire stood between them, his mind torn apart by everything he'd learned. He looked at the video again, then at the twin, then at the maid. "So all this time," he whispered, "you both were prisoners of my father's sins." The twin stepped closer to the desk. "That drive, it's proof of everything. Use it. Destroy his legacy, his empire, make the world know who he truly was." The billionaire stared at the flash drive, his reflection glowing on the computer screen. His heart pounded in his chest. He could end everything his father built, all the wealth, all the power, with one click. But then, a voice echoed in his head. His father's voice. "Son, protect our name, no matter what happens." Tears filled his eyes. "If I expose him, I destroy everything." If I hide it, I become him. The maid stood slowly. So choose. Justice, or silence. The billionaire's hand hovered over the keyboard, trembling. He looked one last time at the video of his father laughing. Then, with a deep breath, he whispered, "It ends tonight." He pressed a key. The screen went black. For a moment, everything was silent, until the computer began to upload the video automatically to a folder marked Public Archive. The maid gasped. The twins stared in disbelief. The billionaire turned to them and said quietly, "The truth deserves to live. Even if it destroys me." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky as if the heavens themselves were reacting to what had just been done. The twin gave a faint, sorrowful smile. "Then you're nothing like your father." The billionaire looked toward the window, rain beginning to fall, and whispered, "No. I'm not." Lightning flashed, lighting up the mansion one last time. And in that moment, 3 broken souls finally saw the truth, but none would ever be the same again.